Hey guys, Sunil here, and this is your weekly broker tip for Friday, August 4th, 2023. Once again, my standard disclaimer, I am not an attorney and this is not legal advice. So this week's tip is around fraudulent sellers. I posted this article in our internal Facebook group a few days ago, and this was actually posted in one of the broker in charge groups I'm a part of, and that's how I found out about it. And I've seen this particular situation making the rounds in different groups. Unfortunately, this is just one example among many throughout the country. These fraudulent seller scams are growing. So first off, I figured it'd be a good tip for this, or good content for this week's tip, and some of our agents were asking what we can do to prevent it. So just a quick blurb on this actual situation. A guy owns some land in Connecticut. He's owned it for years. He lived either out of state or out of town. And so someone pretended to be him, called up actually a Keller Williams agent, fooled the Keller Williams agent into thinking they were the actual owners of the vacant land. The KW agent listed it, sold it. I think it sold for $350,000. And then the people who purchased it put up a $1.5 million house on the land. And I think it was a developer or a builder who purchased it and then built a house to sell. And that house is under contract now. And then meanwhile, the actual owner comes into town, finds out this is happening, and so as you can imagine, it's just chaos right now. The police are involved, everyone's getting sued. The people who thought they bought the land may not have purchased it. I don't know if that transaction is considered valid since they bought it from someone who's not the actual owner, but they got a $1.5 million house on the land now, so who knows what the heck is going to happen. And like I said, this is just one example among many. So what can we do? So first off, for those of you who are not aware of the scam, basically what someone does is they impersonate the actual owner of a property. It's almost always a vacant piece of land. In theory, the same scam could be done with a house, but it would be really hard. Maybe a vacant house, but even then, it would just be more difficult. But vacant land is a lot easier to pull the scam off on. And what they do is they impersonate the owner, they convince an agent to list the property for him, to sell it for him. They convince the attorney or the title company that they're the actual owner, and they don't ever show up to closing, they just do a remote closing, and then they get the proceeds wired to them. So they get all the money from the sale of the property, minus commissions and closing costs, and it could be months sometimes before the actual owner finds out that their property was just sold. So that's a scam for those of you who are not aware of it, and it's unfortunately just growing in popularity. We've had a bunch of fraudulent sellers reach out to our agents. I think we had like 4 last year. Thankfully, all of our agents, caught it before it went anywhere. But a couple things to look for, and just know there's no one foolproof way to prevent this from happening. Title work or title search will not prevent this from happening, because in all of these fraudulent seller situations that that were successful, title work was done. Title work just identifies, among other things, who the legal owner of a property is, but if someone is pretending to be that actual owner and they fool everybody in the transaction, then title work won't stop that. But hopefully doing a combination of these things will prevent the scam from happening. So the first thing is, if you get someone who calls and they're remote and they can't meet with you, that in and of itself doesn't mean they're fraudulent. Obviously, a lot of agents have sold property for sellers that they've never met. I've done that, a few times in my career where I've just talked to them on the phone. But if that happens, you have to have a video call with that person with the video on. If they are unwilling to do that, do not list the property for them. That's a red flag. If they start making excuses that they're out of the country, they don't have access to Zoom or whatever, that's red flag number 1. Red flag number 2 is if they want to list the property well below what the market value is. We all know that that's typically not the case with sellers. They want to list it for more than what it's worth. So if they're willing to list it below fair market value, that's a red flag. And if they're just overly anxious to get a super fast sale and get the deal under contract really quickly and close really quickly, once again, doesn't guarantee that they're fraudulent, but that's also a red flag, because obviously the faster these transactions can get done, the less likely the scammer will get caught. So go through those steps. Forewarn is another great tool to use. Put the person's number in Forewarn and see what pops up. If you Google South Carolina realtor fake sellers, there's a couple of articles that pop up that SC Realtors, South Carolina Association of Realtors, has posted over the last year or so. Here's one that Byron did in November of 2022, another one that Michael Chris did in June of 2023, with just different tips and things you can do. So the key is to be aware of it. If you ever have any questions or someone reaches out to you that you have any concerns about whatsoever, please contact me and we can work through it. If it's already under contract and you start to get a bad feeling about the situation, let me know, and also let the closing attorney know right away. And hopefully, there's things that they can do on their end as well to verify different things that they can do to make sure it's an actual seller. So anyway, hopefully that's helpful. Enjoy the rest of your Friday and have a great weekend.